Today we're going to be taking a look at the Whyte Industries Decoy SN Core 4, and it's the brand's first step into the realm of lightweight, mid-power e-mountain bikes, and the brand says that this is the best enduro bike that it's made to date. I've been riding this bike for a few months now, and I can tell you that it fits the enduro intention rather well, but my experience hasn't been completely perfect, so keep watching to find out exactly why. Alright, so let's start off with the details, and this is the Core 4 build for the Decoy SN, and it will cost you £8,500, and for that money you get Whyte's poshest, lightest and strongest ultra modulus carbon fibre frame. Bolted to that frame is Fazua's Ride 60 drive system, and as its name suggests, you get 60 Newton meters of torque and up to 460 watts of power. That's then mated to a 430 watt hour battery integrated into the downtube, and it is not removable. With this motor, simplicity is the name of the game, because at the top tube here we have a really low profile LED display that shows you the motor modes in 3 different colors, and obviously the battery power according to how many LEDs are on. At the handlebar we have a real simple, quite low profile rotary switch that lets you change through the 3 power modes. And if we move back onto the frame, this bike benefits from Whyte Industries V4L suspension platform. We've seen it on most of their bikes, apart from, the Dirt Jump hardtail, and it kind of does exactly what we expect from Whyte now. So it's meant to be supple off the top, supportive in the mid-stroke, and it's meant to resist bottom out very well. But we're told that it's a little bit more linear than platforms of old, especially with this coil shock. Elsewhere, there's space in the front triangle for a water bottle, and Whyte is very proud to say that its internal cable routing does not run through the head tube. But that said, it is still very nice and tidy. In terms of geometry, there's nothing particularly groundbreaking here. It's still very much Whyte in the brand's refusal to go super long or super slack or anything like that. Instead, it's more of a modernisation of the Decoy 29 that we reviewed and actually really liked. Because of that, I think Whyte has made some very good choices. So here we have a large frame, and that gives a 475mm reach, 64.2 degree head tube angle, and I believe this is 78.3 degree seat tube angle. The chainstay then measures in at a rather short 422mm, and that measurement runs throughout the size range. And as expected of almost any modern mountain bike now, there is a flip chip. It's quite small and doesn't do an awful lot, but it's hidden on this shock yoke here. You literally just undo it, take the shock out, flip a chip, pop it back in, and it slackens the angles by 0.3 of a degree. That is how I ran this bike for this test, or for the most of it at the very least. Other frame features include the 160mm of travel at the rear, there's 170 at the front, and it runs a mullet wheel setup as standard, and there is no option to go up to 29" at the rear. So if we move on to the componentry, £8,500 gets you quite a lot here, and that's to be expected of a direct-to-consumer brand. Up the front we have a Fox Factory 38 with the brand new Grip X2 damper, and at the rear we have the DHX2 coil shock. But as we're on the subject of the shock, it must be noted that each size comes with a set spring rate, so that's something you're definitely going to have to take note of when buying the bike. So a small frame gets a 325-pound coil, a medium gets a 375-pound coil, a large gets a 425-pound coil, an extra large gets a 475, and the double XL gets a 500 coil. And I'm quite a heavy boy, I weigh 95 kilos, and on this large frame I was running a 500-pound coil, kindly supplied by Whyte. But when you do buy the bike, it's something that you will have to bear in mind, because if you're heavy like me and want to ride a large frame, you'll have to buy that coil aftermarket. Elsewhere, we have SRAM's GX transmission drivetrain, which is an excellent companion for any e-mountain bike. These transmission drivetrains tend to deal really well with the extra power that most e-bikes put out, and so you get slick shifting regardless of how much power you're putting through the pedals or how much power that motor's kicking out as well. So we've gone over what makes the bike go. Making the bike stop are a pair of SRAM Maven Silver brakes, which is a fantastic touch. Fantastic brakes. They're super powerful. They give you more control over your braking than any other brakes. And for an enduro bike like this, especially an e-bike enduro bike, it makes a lot of sense because you know, you get all of that power. This bike loves to go fast, so having that confidence in your braking elevates the whole experience quite a lot. This particular model runs on Crank Brothers synthesis alloy wheels, and they get Industry 9 1/1 hubs. And it's all pretty high end here. It's a good wheel set. Something to note, if you don't already know, is that both of these wheels are tuned for their specific purposes. So the front wheel gets a wider rim, so you get more grip at the front. The rear has a narrower rim, so you get better rolling resistance. But there's more spokes at the rear for better strength, there's less at the front for more flex, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's a cracking wheel set, there's not really much to complain about here. And then the finishing kit, the finishing kit is something that really sets the bike off. We've got these E13 Helix race cranks that matches the Kashima of the Fox fork, and obviously this gold detailing here. We've got a Renthal cockpit with a real tall 40mm rise bar, and of course we've got Whyte E's Postman V2 dropper, which is essentially a rebranded SGG Tellus V2. Again, a super reliable dropper. As you can see, I have changed some things. I've changed the saddle to an Ergon e-bike saddle, and notably I've changed the grips to the new DMR Death grips. They come with some ODI grips that are, this bike comes with some ODI grips that are super thin, and personally I don't really get on with super thin grips. There's a lot of feedback and vibrations. It's not really for me. But otherwise, there's absolutely nothing I'll change about this bike straight out of the box. It comes with like a super custom feel. You know, you got some real cool CNC parts, and of course those cranks look real good as well, I think. Again, as like a cohesive package, it's a fantastic looking bike. And I forgot to mention the tyres. Obviously these come with Continental Crip Totals, the front model and the rear model. At the front it comes with the super soft compound and the Enduro casing. At the rear we've got a soft compound and the Enduro casing. Fantastic tyres, no complaints here. Real good fit for this bike. As for the ride, there is an awful lot to like about this bike. Again, I did have some problems, we'll get onto them in a minute, but the ride in general is fantastic. It does exactly what it says on the tin and fits the Enduro bill almost perfectly, especially for an e-bike. First off, the motor looks real clean. You know, the downtube's a little bit faster than on a regular mountain bike, but it hides the whole e-bike thing rather well. Again, it's a really good looking bike. And in practice, the motor works very well. I've become a real big fan of Fazua's system. Again, because it's super simple, but it's quiet, it's low profile, and it just does what it's supposed to do. There's 3 modes. You've got an eco it's eco, it gives out the minimal power. You've got a boost that gives you all of the power, but you've got a middling mode that tapers that power to the power that you're putting in through the pedals. And on any e-mountain bike, that's a mode that I really appreciate. It's super punchy too, despite only coming with 60 Newton meters of torque compared to the 85 or like the 100 whatever that you can get on bikes these days. You know, it's plenty. I've not been able to keep up with people running, you know, Shimano EP8s and stuff like that, but for the riding that I do, I've not really felt completely underpowered and wishing for something more. Something I should note is that despite coming with a relatively small 430 watt-hour battery, this bike has plenty to give in terms of range. So I've managed to get in 1,300 meters of climbing or thereabouts over around 30k. And for me, that's quite a big ride. And that didn't drain the whole battery. That was a bike park ride. I was pedaling up, and yeah, it had plenty to give in that respect. But there is one issue. I fell foul to some reliability issues with the Fazua motor. When starting one ride, it will turn on, but then it will just cut out. And that was basically the game it wanted to play throughout that whole ride. There was no warning or anything like that, which is quite a shame. You know, you don't really want to be stepping on eggshells when coming to an e-bike. You want it to work, and you want to be able to ride it with the whole assistance. But this does lead me onto Whyte E's warranty department, and it's actually quite impressive. As a bit of a disclaimer, I was riding with someone from Whyte E, so they took the bike directly to the mill for me. But I got this bike back within 2 weeks with a brand new motor fitted. Again, it's not an ideal situation, but it was solved very, very quickly. And if you are a customer that has had a motor issue, you could take the bike to the mill yourself and have a chat with the guys and they'll fix it for you. You could have it posted to the mill, or you could even go to any Fazua dealer to get the bike fixed. Whyte E would prefer that you take it to the mill or had it taken to the mill, but there's plenty of options there. And of course, if you've got a Fazua dealer close, you know, why not? Just to go back on the motor a little bit, it's surprisingly drag-free. So when I have pedaled over the motor's limit, I've not really felt as if I've been encumbered by the bike's weight or any drag. I've just been able to put the power down and kind of ride almost like normal. There is a bit of weight there, but I've been real happy with it, especially on the flats. Just pedaling, gathering speed. It kind of flies under the radar when it's not doing its job. But in a world where e-mountain bikes are getting very long, for example, Canyon's latest Spectral on Fly with a 500mm reach on a large, Whyte E has certainly stuck to its guns in terms of how it shapes its bikes, and that's something that pays back massively for this bike. It did so on the Decoy 29. Because the geometry isn't particularly long, the bike makes a lot of use of that 22-ish kilos and its massive suspension to keep things tracking straight and to keep, or just to add a bit of stability to the bike. But again, because the geometry is not massively long, it's super playful and rather lively for a bike like this. And that's where the real charm lies in this bike. And because the chainstay is also relatively short for an e-mountain bike, it's whippable and engaging. And then the 64.2-degree head tube angle encourages a bit of stability when things get extra steep. That stability and confidence is also a credit to the tall bar that we've got here. So this bike kind of follows a trend that we've been seeing recently of super short rear ends, longer front centers, and tall stacks. And that kind of makes the front end of an e-mountain bike easier to lift. But in this bike in particular, it makes things super comfortable when you're descending steep stuff, because it kind of puts weight where it should be when descending steep stuff. But that's not to say that it's a slouch when things aren't steep, when things are a bit mellower. It still kind of picks up. It's a very upright position, so it would be quite comfortable on people's backs, if that's something that you care about. Something I really have to mention is that this bike is super stiff. Whyte E Industries bikes are not flexy, and this is definitely not flexy. And you can see how stiff it is just by looking at the rocker link there. It's super overbuilt, the chainstays are super deep, the seat stays are, the whole thing's just fat. And that translates into the ride massively. So what you get from that is a super direct ride feel, especially when you're slamming into technical terrain, which this bike encourages in a big way. And that's a fantastic thing, you know, it's one cohesive object. It's an extension of the rider. But all of that stiffness does translate into quite a lot of vibration, especially with this stiff handlebar and, you know, especially the thinner ODI grips that this bike originally comes with. You know, on long descents, it can become quite unforgiving. So that's where this bike won't really suit everybody. But if you are a heavier hitting rider, you know, you'll definitely appreciate the massive stiffness that this bike can offer. As for value, things aren't looking too bad, but surprisingly there's some stiff competition from brands that I wouldn't have expected. So there's Mondraker with the Dune RR, that will cost you £8,500. And where that bike kind of appeals is that it gets Öhlins suspension, which is mega fancy, and it's a longer bike. Of course, it benefits from the forward geometry concept that Mondraker is renowned for. It also gets the Bosch Performance Line SX motor, so it's still kind of a mid-power lightweight e-bike. But the big kicker, or something to note, is that it comes with SRAM Code Bronze stealth brakes, so they're not nearly as powerful as the Mavens here. But if we take a look at the Canyon Spectral on Fly CF LTD, that would cost you £8,300, thereabouts, a little bit more actually. And it gets an upgrade in drivetrain, so you get the SRAM XXT type. I wouldn't rush out to buy it over this, but that's something to note. But the important thing is that that bike is lighter at around 18 kilos, but it gets the TQ motor, so it is a bit different. But it's a whole different bike, so it gets 150mm at the rear, 160mm suspension at the front, and it's definitely not an enduro bike. It's not as stiff as this one. So those are my impressions on the Whyte E Industries Decoy SN Core 4, and it's a bike that fits its intentions incredibly well. It's enduro all the way through, so you get all of the stiffness, you get all the suspension, and it's super confidence inspiring. But because its geometry isn't massive, it's not a boat, you can turn it around corners, and it's a fun, playful, and exciting bike to ride. Again, there are some issues with the motor. It's not ideal, but thankfully Whyte E's warranty process is quick and very easy to use. As always, if you liked this video, feel free to like and subscribe to find more videos just like this and some more reviews coming soon. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one.